Hello, and welcome to Not Very Scary Stories. This episode will have 2 stories from the internet. Be sure to leave a sub, follow, or whatever you can on whatever platform you're on. Also, be sure to leave a review so people will know to listen in as well. I'd like to thank you guys for the support thus far on all platforms you can find us on, including YouTube. I'd also like to remind everyone that if you have any scary stories or experiences you'd like to share, email me at notveryscaryent@gmail.com. Tell me how you'd like to be credited. I'm Zenith Dark Sky, and I'll be your host tonight. Enjoy. This first story is titled Paralysis, posted by user/firesidechats451 on r/short scary stories. I've experienced sleep paralysis for as long as I can remember. As a child, I'd wake unable to move or even scream. As my eyes darted around the room, I'd see shadowy figures moving, creeping closer and closer. I was lucky enough to have parents who believed me and wanted to help. Together, we learned about the condition and how I might calm myself during these terrifying moments. Knowing that it wasn't real, that it was just neurons misfiring, helped, though each experience was agonizing. Now I live on my own. I don't get sleep paralysis as much, usually just when I'm stressed. This week has been particularly exhausting as my team is handling a big account and our manager is out sick. I had episodes twice this week already. So when I woke again tonight and found myself unable to move, I wasn't surprised. I lay motionless, the shadows already gathering at the edges of my vision. They're not real, I told myself sternly, just tricks of the eye, nothing more. Downstairs, a door opened. That had never happened before. I tried to ignore it. It's just a new hallucination. Focus on your breathing. The shadows coalesced into thin figures, so tall they bent to fit my room. From below came the sound of footsteps up the stairs. My heart pounded, my muscles still locked tight. Like I said, I live alone. No dog, no girlfriend, and I live hours away from my family. There's no reason for anyone to wander around my house at night. The shadowy figures turned to me as one, their faces pools of ink. Unhurried footsteps tread down the hall. I fought against my body, a thin groan squeezing my lips as I fought to move. The shadows figures crept closer, moving in flickers and jumps. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I never locked my bedroom door. Why would I? There's nothing I need to keep out. The shadow figures circled around my bed, leaning down to stare. The doorknob creaked as it turned. The shadow figures froze, then turned as one to look at the bedroom door. Out of the corner of my eye, the door edged open. This next story is rather long, but written by a good friend named Wormadaniel1 on Twitch, and just Wormadaniel in many communities on Twitch as well. I was not a very observant child. I had trouble focusing on menial tasks, and keeping my attention was often a struggle for my parents and teachers as well. Even as I grew older, into my early teens, I just had a habit of ignoring certain aspects of my life. My grades in school would suffer because I just couldn't seem to keep my focus on the teacher's lessons or the assignments at hand. My attention to directions and rules at home, along with my failing grades, really made home life difficult for me and my parents as well. There just didn't seem to be any way to pull my head out of the clouds and snap me back to reality. One day my mom walks into my bedroom and tells me, "Son, something has to change. We have talked to the family doctor and we think there's a medicine that might help." So they drove me to the clinic where, after a few tests and questions from the cheerfully obese doctor, I was diagnosed with ADHD and was promptly prescribed the medication that would effectively open my eyes to the world around me: Adderall. The medication was supposed to keep me alert and focused on my tasks. Something as simple as a pill was supposed to help me be a model student and the ideal son for my overworked parents. The doctor really sold my parents on the idea, and there wasn't a whole lot I could do to convince them otherwise, so by the start of the school week, I was supposed to take one of these pills every day. I spent the weekend alone in my room trying to complete my homework before Monday, and inevitably lose my focus due to thinking about this new medication and the new Shonen Jump book I just got earlier in the week. Monday comes and I wake up to a simple breakfast of toast, eggs, orange juice, and one pill from my newly acquired medication. I proceed to eat my breakfast and head to school on the familiar yellow bus I've grown up with for years. My school day ends up being one of the most productive days I've had all year, and my focus was sharp and alert. My teachers praised my change in attitude, which was apparently drastic enough for them to feel the need to comment about it. I was honestly excited for this new medication and wondered why I had never been prescribed Adderall earlier in my life. I felt like maybe there was really something wrong with me and Adderall would finally be the solution to my issues. I go home and express my joy to my parents, finish my homework in record time, and start reading my new manga. That night, I got no sleep. I stayed awake through the night and finished my entire magazine about 1 hour before my mom was normally due to wake me up for the day. Finally starting to feel the effects of my restless night, I laid there silently skimming back through some of the favorite parts of my book until I heard Father leave for work and Mom finally called up to me for breakfast. I just assumed the mango was too much excitement and it was the cause for me to not sleep that night, but regardless, I make my way down to breakfast and see a wonderful breakfast sandwich and another small pill next to my glass of juice. I feel reinvigorated by the food made by my loving mother and head to school for another day, not knowing this was the beginning of the end. On the way to school, I couldn't help but notice that I started to feel more alert and aware of my surroundings as the Adderall took hold yet again to guide me through the day. I lose all feeling of being tired and have another decent day at school regardless of being up for over 32 hours. I make my way home yet again and go through my usual nightly routine of dinner with my parents, followed by taking out the trash and doing a few dishes. I notice that my medications still seem to be keeping me alert and focused through my nightly chores, and thought that maybe I should skip the exciting manga for the night and go to bed early. I lay in my bed tossing and turning, unable to sleep. 1 hour, then 3 hours, on to 5 hours. I toss and turn in my bed, approaching nearly 40 hours awake in the unrelenting grip of Adderall. I get up in the middle of the night, near 3 a.m., and go to the bathroom just to pee and give my fatigued body a chance to stretch. As I wash my hands in my dimly lit bathroom, I look at myself in the mirror and lock eyes with my reflection. Something about my own sleep-deprived gaze staring back at me haunted me to my core, but I couldn't pull away. I stood there motionless for 3 hours until my mother's voice cracked like a whip through the silence and called me down for breakfast. At this point, I don't remember the breakfast, but I remember the pill placed next to my juice. But I realize now that it's the medication causing me not to sleep, But there's a very important test that I just can't afford to miss. I know the Adderall will give me the help I need, so I take it and head to school yet again as the wicked pill takes hold. With my mind alert and my body fatigued, I pass my important test with a B+ and make my way home on the yellow school bus. Looking out the windows, on the way home, the trees and houses just moved faster and faster until they were a blur of lines right before my eyes, and moments later I'm walking in to greet my parents with no recollection of the previous bus ride or even leaving the bus to walk to my house. I tell them I passed my test and the nightly routine begins again with another dinner and chores before bed. 1 hour, then 3 hours. I toss and turn, wide awake in the darkness of my room. My mind unable to shut down, but my body past the point of exhaustion. I just stare into the blackened void of darkness. My eyes focused on everything, and when there was nothing to be found and my body begging to shut down, I stare deeper and deeper into the void when the darkness and shadows start slowly swirling in front of me. Bizarre patterns appeared before me that resembled something like demonic runes I've only ever seen in my Shonen Jump books. Unable to move or look away, I feel a crushing pressure on my whole body as the void of shadows and patterns form into a blank, expressionless face with no features other than 2 piercing eyes full of red and black swirling hatred. My breaths become shallow, and it feels like my body is being crushed by the presence of the shadow-drenched creature of my own creation. I'm forced to stare at this for the next 3 hours until, yet again, my mother's voice pierces the air and the crack of sunlight through my curtain cuts through the hallucination, freeing me from my living nightmare. I make my way down to the kitchen, eat my breakfast, and look down at the 4th pill waiting there for me like it knew I would return. I hesitate, but take the pill anyways. This had been the only time I had ever seemed to make my parents happy with my improvement, and my teachers have always given me hell until Adderall came into my life. I couldn't stop now, and if I did stop, I wouldn't be able to make it through the rest of the day. I take the pill and leave for school yet again. The whole day is a blur. I don't remember the conversations, and I don't remember the assignments. The only thing I remember is walking through my door and into the kitchen where my parents were waiting. They told me that Father had an important business trip and Mother needed to tend to a sick relative for a few days, so I would be on my own for Friday and through the weekend. They planned to leave the next morning after. I head to school and I would be on my own, which wasn't uncommon now that I was getting into my teen years. We go through our usual nightly routine, but my mother couldn't help but notice I just didn't seem to be my normal self. I brushed it off and I just told her I was a bit tired, so I finished out the night with chores and went to bed for the night. 1 hour, then 3 hours, I tried to sleep before the memory of the previous night invaded my mind, and I sprang up from my bed and paced back and forth a few times before grabbing my manga and reading to take my mind off of things. I grab a small flashlight from my bedside dresser and thumb through a few chapters before the shadows start swirling around me. Tighter and tighter the shadows seemed to close in on me, with only a small flashlight shining against the pages of my book to fight back against the void of my Adderall corrupted mind. I managed to regain control of myself for a moment, and I lift my flashlight to look around the room. Right in front of me when I shine the light is a reflection of myself with bloody eyes and jagged teeth staring into the depths of my soul. Unable to scream, unable to move, I sit in silence, unable to remove the flashlight from the demonic reflection of the demon inside my mind. The demon in front of me grabs my head with blood-soaked fingers and stares me directly in the eyes as voices from hell flood my mind for hours. Then, as clear as a gunshot in the mountains, my mother's voice calls to me in an instant. My hellish night is over. I rush down the stairs and throw myself into my mom's arms, crying uncontrollably but unable to speak. I've been awake for over 96 hours and only my mom has been able to pull me back from the depths of hell. I break down and tell her everything. I tell her about the hell I experienced and that the Adderall was the cause of it. She just hugs me tightly and tells me it's all right, sweetie. It's all over now. I hug her back tightly and open my eyes. Over her shoulder, I see a note in my mother's handwriting laying on the table where my breakfast would usually be. It says, "Sorry, honey, we had to leave earlier than expected, but since you didn't feel good last night, you can stay home from school today. Try to get some sleep, sweetie, and we'll see you in a few days." I slowly pull away to look at what I thought was my mother, and I see my own bloody reflection staring back at me yet again. I thought in my mom's arms I was safe, but it was Adderall, after all.